Hey guys, welcome back to DC Extra. My name is Chris. Today we're going to be covering the Dark Crisis comics from October. As you can see on screen now, the 4 issues that are being released this month are Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 5, Dark Crisis The Deadly Green issue 1, Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League Green Arrow issue 1, and Dark Crisis Young Justice issue 5. And despite the order it's in here, I'm going to be covering it in a slightly different order, putting The Deadly Green before Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 5. And that's just due to the way some interconnecting storylines occur chronologically. Anyway, now let's get into the breakdowns, starting with The Deadly Green. Underneath the Hall of Justice, various members of Justice League Dark, Titans, and various other heroes summon Jade and Obsidian, the children of Green Lantern Alan Scott. A page with a bunch of writing tells us what has happened through Dark Crisis so far, and that this issue will focus on learning the secrets of the Great Darkness. The heroes ask Obsidian to use his powers on Alan's Green Lantern ring. At the start, he's against this idea because he doesn't want to harm his father. However, due to the stakes of the mission, he does what is suggested. Superman, Raven, Constantine, and the 2 Swamp Things are sucked into the ring, while the rest of the heroes stay and guard the hall. Once entering the world within the ring, Constantine and one of the Swamp Things go missing. The disappearance of Alec Holland's Swamp Thing is explained as he does not have a physical body. However, Constantine's disappearance is still a bit of a mystery. After finding their bearings, the heroes quickly realize that they can't use their powers in this new world, and they must travel on foot. We then catch up with John, who is confronted by what appears to be the Upside Down Man. They have a little conversation, but there's nothing really of note said here. Swamp Thing and Superman are both affected by the darkness, and in turn start harassing Raven. We come back to the heroes at the Hall of Justice, where it appears Alan is struggling to deal with the darkness that Obsidian is inflicting on him. However, they must continue to finish this mission. Next, the Upside Down Man transforms into Trigon, which means this is probably a manifestation of some sort. Raven helps free Superman and Swamp Thing from the darkness, and then leads them to the source of this darkness. Superman and Swamp Thing then join forces in a hope to overcome the darkness together, where they could not do so individually. Jenny Lynn and Todd help their father to regain his strength, but he falls unconscious, and in doing so his will that was keeping the heroes inside the ring dims, which means they have little time left. With this now time constraint, Superman and Swamp Thing find a machine at the center of the darkness. Constantine explains that this is Pariah's machine from the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. Once returning to the Hall of Justice, they realize that Pariah corrupted the darkness, as opposed to the idea that the darkness corrupted Pariah. The ending of this issue will continue straight on in Dark Crisis issue 5 at around about the middle of that issue, but there is a few stuff to cover before that, so let's get into the breakdown of Dark Crisis issue 5. The first panel in this issue includes the map of the multiverse. However, it appears to be corrupted by what is presumably the Great Darkness, slowly infecting the entire DC multiverse. Back in a more local setting, Black Adam fights the Dark Army, where he gets into a bit of a tight spot. However, Supergirl, Aquaman, Mr. Terrific, and Sideways go help him out. However, their fight does not last very long, and they retreat back to the Hall of Justice. At the Hall, Nightwing takes the lead. After learning about how Slade is the center of the Dark Army, he tells Oracle to send all the heroes to them, so they can fight them head on. After getting to see a bit more of Pariah and his plan to rebirth the multiverse, we take a dive into Earth Batman, where we last saw Barry and Hal last issue. After fighting Bruce briefly, Hal helps him remember the real world by showing him a picture of his family. Bruce says that to help the rest of the League see the truth, they need to seek out the expert in truth. Presumably that is Diana, due to the whole lasso of truth thing she has going on, but that'll be confirmed later on. Again, we see the map of the multiverse covered in darkness, and this time it is even further corrupted, showing that there is not much time until the full multiverse is covered in this darkness. At the Hall, we see the team strategizing. At this point, we see a new hero for the first time, that being Red Canary, someone who was said to appear at some point in this crossover, and well, I guess this is it. We don't really see much here, it's only really an overlooking shot from behind her. However, we could still potentially see more in the coming issues. Additionally, a new announced event that will be occurring next year also has Red Canary in the promo images for that, so it is possible we see her more throughout that instead of through the Dark Crisis event. After a while longer, the team decides to send the JSA to investigate the darkness and attempt to stop it, while the Titans fight Deathstroke and his army. John then barges in carrying a piece of tech, saying that it isn't the darkness that has infected Pariah, but rather the other way around. And this piece of tech was found in Dark Crisis the Deadly Green, that being Pariah's antimatter chamber that triggered the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. And some of the heroes here plan to analyze this device. Damien seeks out the help of Dr. Light and heads off into Dark Crisis the Dark Army, which will be coming out next month. We don't really get too much details about what's going to be happening here, but I assume it's going to consist of Damien, Dr. Light, and various other heroes going to fight some of Slade's army. However, considering they all came to the Hall of Justice, I don't really know how this is going to play out too much. The Flash family then runs in to warn of Slade's incoming attack, and before long, the fight begins. On Earth Superman, Barry, Hal, Bruce, and Diana find Clark, who appears to have things under control, to absolutely no one's surprise. Pariah notices that this new world has become unstable, and before he manages to fix it, the Justice League reappear. We see multiple reunions after each of the heroes have been trapped in their own individual worlds, as was explored and will continue to be explored through Worlds Without a Justice League. As Superman attempts to talk Pariah down, he teleports away due to his curse of witnessing every world on the verge of destruction. Back on Earth Zero, Pariah appears, with many of the other villains from across the DC multiverse, signifying the destruction of Earth Zero. Alright, now moving into Worlds Without a Justice League, Green Arrow. This story is set in a medieval time, where Malcolm Merlin takes money from an old lady, but luckily for her, Green Arrow and some friends step in to save the day. The three people who accompany Oliver Queen are Roy Harper, Mia Dearden, and Connor Hawke, as Arsenal, Speedy, and Green Arrow respectively. And these are each teammates and family members of Oliver's from the real world. Although I don't believe Connor and Oliver have met in the current continuity. Merlin and his team get into a fight with Green Arrow and his friends. Before Oliver is able to capture Merlin, he runs into the woods. Before seeing Oliver chase him, there is a mysterious hooded person whose face we do not see, but from the way the dialogue is written, it seems that they are the narrator in this story. Oliver wanders through the forest, but somehow ends up at a city, where he runs into Dinah Lance, aka Black Canary. The two fight briefly before realizing they recognize each other, and there seems to be a weird connection between their two worlds, as there is a clear divide between the forest and the city. Dinah takes Oliver to see something, but before they arrive we see someone, an archer who crawls out of the ground. As Dinah and Oliver are catching up, the bar they are in gets blown up by, well, Oliver. Black Canary and Green Arrow fight this other Oliver Queen, who seems to be a defense mechanism brought here by the merging of the two worlds. They eventually defeat the other Oliver and then kiss. Just before the storyline ends, we see yet another Oliver who was dressed in the mysterious hood that I mentioned earlier. In the next storyline, it appears as though Oliver has been having dreams of Dinah and trying to find her, with no luck. Meanwhile, it appears as though Dinah is a police officer also having dreams, but of losing everything she loves to Doomsday. Oliver steps into a rocket to travel between worlds, hoping to find where the woman of his dreams is. Barbara Gordon attempts to arrest Dinah, but she runs away. However, before getting very far, Oliver's rocket enters their world, where the two seem to remember each other, the result of which is the destruction of their two worlds. We then learn that this has happened countless times before. The two keep finding each other due to their love. Dinah then proposes that Pariah construct them a world where they can be together, forgetting everything that Pariah has done, but a world that would not be destroyed as they would be together. Pariah listens to this, and the two live happily ever after. For now at least. Now moving on to Young Justice issue 5. This issue starts off with Mickey Mixes-Pitalick messing with Robin, Superboy, and Impulse for a while, claiming that the reason he brought them to this fake world is to give them a second chance because they were pushed aside, forgotten in the real world. The way he talks makes it sound like he's a fan of the comics who misses the characters being shown more, which many people definitely feel. However, I don't think they could quite go to these lengths to show it. The False Worlds version of Cassie gets shot with an arrow that Sissy from the Real World shot. I don't exactly know how this happened, however it does get explained in a weird kind of convoluted way, and that is through Impulse being able to communicate with Cassie from the real world by vibrating at her specific frequency, sending her a sign. And then when Robin threw a bomb, the explosion caused them to reunite. Cassie then takes down her double and lectures the boys a bit for being fooled by this fake version of her. Robin attempts to make Mickey say his name in order to send him back to the 5th dimension. However, he proves to be too smart for that, and a fight commences. Sissy realizes that her troubles and fears in the past were due to being alone, so instead of staying alone, she joins her teammates in their fight. After quitting Young Justice a while ago, Red Tornado and Superboy give Impulse a boost so that he's able to bring them all back to the real world through the Speed Force. The team then plans to go to the Hall of Justice, where something big has happened, obviously referring to the events of Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 5, where Deathstroke's army and the Titans went head to head, giving this series its first tie into the larger Dark Crisis event. However, they are unable to go help their friends at the Hall because Mickey has followed them back from the 5th dimension. And that is where this issue ends. So now let's get into the reviews of each of these issues. Starting with The Deadly Green. This was quite an interesting issue, following this team of various heroes from the DC universe in a place that is consumed with darkness attempting to find answers. The team in this issue was a great mixture of different personalities and powers, making for an intriguing read. Each of their strengths are portrayed throughout, and at the end, when we find out that Pariah is the cause of this crisis, this shines a new light on the entire situation. As for Dark Crisis issue 5, I thought this was an amazing issue, really tying a lot of things together, especially the Worlds Without a Justice League storyline, which up until now seemed very separate for the most part. The introduction of Red Canary holds potential for the future. However, we don't get to really see a lot apart from a small little panel. However, there is still potential for this character in the coming issues of Dark Crisis, and maybe even in other comic books such as Lazarus Planet that I did go over in a previous video. And of course, that cliffhanger at the very end, that being Earth-Zero on the brink of destruction. It really has me hanging out for next issue to find out how the heroes fight back and pull out a win, if they even do. As for Worlds Without a Justice League, once again, I really love this issue, and definitely not biased at all because Green Arrow is in no way one of my all-time favourite heroes. All jokes aside, this issue explored the love Oliver and Dinah have for each other, literally able to cross worlds in order to be with one another. It was a little confusing when there were multiple versions of Oliver, however once Pariah mentioned that he has had to reboot their world multiple times, all the loose ends kind of come together. Needless to say, this was probably one of my favourite Worlds Without a Justice League issues so far. And as for Young Justice issue 5, this issue started off quite a bit slow. However, once Cassie, Sissy and Red Tornado reunited with their teammates, things really started to pick up. Everything was explained a lot more, tying up some of those loose ends from previous issues, and the team's reunion served for some great character interaction. The way they referenced the Dark Crisis event makes me think that the next issue may tie into the event at large, and maybe Mickey, with his 5th dimensional abilities, can help save the universe, or could potentially just cause issues for them even further. But anyway, that is it for this month. So until next month's issue of Dark Crisis, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content like this. And be sure to check out my Twitter account for the latest news on everything DC and more. But until next time, this has been Chris, and I'll be seeing ya.